Concerns are growing in Avoyelles Parish about the number of stray dogs and animals not getting proper food or shelter. With limited space at local shelters, many residents are stepping in to help. Now police jurors say they're looking into possible solutions. Residents across Avoyelles Parish say they are seeing more stray dogs in neighborhoods, many appearing underfed and without proper shelter or neglected. Dogs picked up within the city limits of Marksville are taken to the Marksville Animal Shelter. However, that shelter can only hold up to 9 dogs at a time. Once the shelter reaches capacity, additional dogs cannot be picked up. The bigger concern is what happens to dogs outside the city limits throughout the rest of Avoyelles Parish. Because of limited shelter space, some residents say they are rescuing dogs themselves, bringing them into their homes or placing them in boarding facilities. But those homes and facilities are quickly becoming full. Police juror Jacob Coco says there is a site in place for a parish shelter, but funding is holding up the completion of that process.
The police jury as a committee for animal welfare, and we have a site nailed down and some draft plans, but funding is the issue. So we have a couple of funding sources possibly. We're checking with the Attorney General's office, make sure we can dip into the fundings for that. But as of right now, there's no dedicated tax for animal control.
Police jurors say they are aware of the concerns and are discussing possible solutions to address dog control and the growing animal population across the parish.